to Dr. Ibrahim Al-Assil, Senior Fellow at the Middle East Institute. Welcome to you, Ibrahim. Thank you for being with us. What do you make of what we're seeing in Aleppo?
Thank you for having me. It's a major development and it's an earthquake of what's happening in the geopolitical scene in Syria and the region. Of course, the attack itself was expected. There was a build-up by Hay'at Tahrir al-Sham for not only weeks and months, but almost for about 2 years. However, the rapid collapse of the regime forces around Aleppo and now in the city of Aleppo was not only a surprise, it was a shock for many, probably including Hayat Tahrir al-Sham themselves, because it's easier to take control of cities over to govern those cities. And now Hayat Tahrir al-Sham might find itself in front of a huge challenge that they haven't prepared for.
Well, if there was that build-up, why do you think there wasn't more significant pushback from government forces?
I think that's for multiple reasons. And the major reason behind that is the weakness of the regime's allies. When we're talking about the Iranian militias and Hezbollah in particular, who intervened in 2013 to prop up the Syrian regime, they have been degraded in the war against Israel and Lebanon. Different sites inside Syria that's controlled by Hezbollah have been targeted by Israel, and then also they damaged many of the roads to transfer fighters and weapons. And I would add to that also Russia, which intervened in 2015, in September 2015, on the side of Assad, has been also overwhelmed and busy in the war in Ukraine.
Are there any indications that this could spread further?
Absolutely. I think it has everything that it could take for this to spread further, because the dynamics or the unintended consequences of this attack might unfold over the next few days and weeks. We might see other parts of Syria where opposition armed groups start to attack Assad in the south, also because Assad might now move some forces from around Syria to send support to Aleppo. Other armed groups like ISIS, probably, there are still some remaining pockets of ISIS around Syria. They might take advantage of that to also regroup and launch new attacks. And finally, at some point, we might see the Kurdish forces that are supported by the United States also facing some of those opposition groups or Assad's groups themselves.
And Ibrahim, if we see other players in the region become involved and re-engaged once again, what could this mean for the area at a time when, of course, we are seeing conflict on multiple fronts in the Middle East?
Yeah, that's a great question, because this really could launch or could cause another wave of refugees and displaced people. Many people inside Syria and in neighboring countries, all they want to do is to go back home and be safe at home. But that's been a distant dream that many now feel it's impossible. What has happened over the last few days is a renewing cycle of this conflict. I don't think it gets us any close to solve this conflict in any what actually highlights is that this conflict needs more international focus for a framework to end it, rather than just to pause it here and there, and that we wait for this cycle to renew itself at some point.
Well, can I just ask you then, how do you think the Biden administration and in turn the Trump administration, when it comes in, will be looking at this? Because, of course, they are also very concerned with what is happening in Israel, Gaza, Lebanon, Ukraine at the moment.
I think the major point here is also the American forces in the Northeast. This shows what happened over the last months, that whenever there is a vacuum, whenever one of these actors is getting weaker, other actors will try to come and fill in the vacuum. And if the United States withdraw its forces from the Northeast without coordination with the Kurdish forces and other actors on the ground and in the region, that might leave a vacuum that Iran or ISIS or Assad or other actors might try to fill in by renewing the fight inside Syria and in the region. And that will, of course, increase the cost on the civilians themselves inside Syria.
Dr. Ibrahim Al-Assil, Senior Fellow at the Middle East Institute. Very good to get your analysis. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.